Today I want to share with you guys some thoughts on fundraising. Recently got a comment from someone on a fundraising video I did about a year ago, and realized that this is a topic that I feel like I have a lot to say on, and wanted to add the next set of thoughts on fundraising. So I wanted to share I think the number one mistake that people make when they approach fundraising, the topic in general. But we have a pretty big audience here. Many of you guys aren't even Christians. A lot of people have been subscribing to our channel recently. Welcome, guys. And I think a lot of those people are subscribing because we're Americans living in Norway, which is a huge part of our channel. But we also are missionaries and share our insights into what missions life looks like. And for those of you who are maybe more interested in what it looks like to be an American in Norway, this is relating to how we can afford to live in Norway as Americans, and we're not being paid to be working here in Norway from the organization we're with. We're actually raising support, and we're with an organization called Youth of the Mission. I think the biggest mistake that people make when they approach fundraising is that they're thinking too small. I think when people approach the idea of fundraising, they're overwhelmed by the idea of raising money, and it seems like a lot of money, and I think they feel insecure about the idea of raising that money. So I think that they make their efforts, or they make their perspectives smaller to try to match the overwhelmed feeling that they have, that if I'm overwhelmed by the idea of fundraising a lot of money, that if I try to fundraise less money, or if I put less effort into fundraising, that I don't have to do as much, and therefore it'll be less overwhelming. The problem is that I think this actually backfires. But the two areas that I feel like people miss out on when it comes to fundraising, or the two mistakes they make, is they don't have a big enough budget. I think most people come in saying, what can I get away with? How little can I live on as a missionary? And this is flawed for multiple reasons, but the biggest reason is that when you start with your smallest ideal budget, or the smallest amount you can live on, when you have a hard time reaching that, then you don't even have enough to pay for the smallest amount you need. Whereas if you raise some additional support on top of that for typical living, then you're going to end up with some more buffer, so that when you lose a supporter, or when support doesn't come in, then you're not all of a sudden in a position where you're unable to live on your support. The biggest reason, however, that you need a large enough budget is that you need to come into your fundraising not feeling like if you don't get to this percentage that you won't be able to live. You need to feel like you're fundraising past that point. It will release the pressure off your fundraising, and that points to the second reason. And the second reason is that when people go to start fundraising, they actually have too small of a perspective on who to ask. They limit it down and say, all right, I need this much money per month, and that means I need this many people to give this much, and so I'm going to go find that many people and ask them. And the reality is that there's just always going to be a percentage of people that you ask. For us, it was just over 50% of people that we asked that were going to say no. And in the training we received, they encouraged us to realize that many people aren't going to be able to give because they're already giving somewhere else, because they're not financially able to, because they don't feel led to, because they're not inspired by your story, or they don't know you as well. And so we oftentimes, when we prepare, we start to think through in our minds who could give us money and how much money could they give us, and we start to build these expectations. And when we start to get into the scenario where we're actually doing the fundraising, we start to kind of think, okay, this person's probably going to give me this much, and this person's probably going to give me this much. And then we go ask those two people, and neither one of them is able to give it all. And all of a sudden our math problem starts to get squeezed, and we start to kind of say, oh gosh, I really need this next person. And what happens in this context when you have a smaller plan is that you end up putting more pressure on those smaller group of people, and you put more pressure on yourself to make sure that your plan works. That pressure translates into an uncomfortable fundraising scenario for you and for the person you're meeting with. The training that we received suggested that we have a larger plan, and that we have a bigger idea of saying, I'm not just going to, let's say it's 20 people that I think I need on my team. We have about 50. if I was shooting for 50, let's say, I might think I need to go find 50 people to meet with, but they were suggesting that we actually look at more like trying to meet with 100 people. If you want 50 people on your team, you need a plan that doesn't just have 50 people in it, because if 50% of the people are going to say no, even if they love you, even if they want to, they can't, that 50% needs to play into your scenario. You need a plan that's big enough. So if you are thinking, I need 50 supporters, you need to reach out to 100, and the perspective actually gets even bigger than that. You even need to pursue more than 100 to get 100 to even meet with you, or to get 100 to consider you. So most people, as they come into fundraising, they don't have a big enough plan of how many people they need to pursue and how many people they need to ask. So it puts more pressure on them to make those people that they do ask, to make sure that they actually give. And it puts, that pressure is felt by the person that's receiving the request for support. They feel that, and it puts more pressure on them, and people don't like feeling that pressure, so it causes them to have a hard time wanting to respond or wanting to even meet with you. So if you are able to bring more freedom to the whole topic by having a bigger plan, it will really enable you to be more free in knowing that you are going to get that 50% number. Was huge for us, knowing that 50% of the people that we asked were going to say no. It meant that that wasn't rejection, it meant that it was math. If every person I met with had just as much chance of not giving as giving, then I didn't feel any pressure to make them be one of the people that gave. I felt freedom to even encourage them to pray about it to God. And underlying all of this is really some biblical foundations for fundraising, and I think it's so key that you understand those biblical foundations. I think the reason I think this is a big mistake is I think that most people really dislike or are frustrated by fundraising. I think the reason why is because they feel an immense amount of pressure on themselves, and then they give that pressure to the people around them, and it feels like person after person in every relationship they have, they're putting pressure on that relationship. And I think that's a really uncomfortable thing, both for the person doing it and the person who it's being done to. And I believe if we have a bigger budget and we have a bigger perspective on our fundraising effort that's needed, we go to more people, then we end up in a scenario where we're actually able to give more freedom to people. There's a great resource called The God Ask. It's an amazing book. And then there's even better resource called Support Raising Solutions. They're connected, and they run a 2-day fundraising retreat or conference. And I went and did this, and it was super helpful in forming and shaping me and preparing me to fundraise before coming into full-time missions as a family, especially. And I highly recommend you check out. I'll put the information down below to their website and a link to their book. If you like fundraising resources, this isn't like the main focus, but like I do have some thoughts to share here. Ask your questions down below and let me know. Give me a thumbs up on this video. Let me know in the comments what you want to hear more about. There's definitely a lot more to share here. And I actually have taught on this and have some audio recordings from that. If you're interested in those audio recordings, I'll put my email address in the description for this video. You can email me and I'll send you what I've got. It's not amazing, but maybe it might be better than nothing for you. Good luck on your journey. God bless. We loved our fundraising. Hope you do too. And yeah, thanks for watching. We are an American family living in Norway, trying to live and tell our story well, inspire you to do the same. We'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks. Bye.